In the archives of the Devonshire Magistrates' Court, among promissory notes and reports on the confiscation of illegally imported French brandy from the year 1855, there is preserved a folio, unremarkable at first glance, registered under inventory number 418. This is the parish donation ledger of the Church of St. Michael in the village of Woodbury. However, upon detailed forensic and paleographic analysis of the pages pertaining to February of that year, a hidden logistical protocol is revealed. In the margins, disguised as common astronomical symbols and lunar phase notations, inscribed in sympathetic ink based on cobalt chloride, a detailed scheme for the movement of goods and the distribution of areas of responsibility among 32 members of a closed trade syndication is recorded. It is this document, and not the exalted newspaper clippings of the time, that is the key to understanding the so-called phenomenon of the Devonshire tracks. The incident, which entered popular culture as the Devil's Footprints, was in fact one of the most large-scale, brilliantly coordinated, and institutionally formalized operations for the concealment of contraband flows and the manipulation of public consciousness in 19th-century British history. Before we proceed to a detailed audit of this outstanding example of political and economic engineering, I ask you to subscribe to the channel and support our work. Your subscription allows us to continue our archival research, to bring to light the authentic protocols of the past, and to restore historical reality by cleansing it of mystical overtones and tabloid speculation. To understand the anatomy of the events of February 1855, it is necessary to reconstruct the economic and political landscape of the British Empire of that period. The state was in a condition of severe financial exhaustion caused by the protracted Crimean War. A sharp increase in the tax burden, the introduction of additional excise duties on colonial goods, tea, tobacco, and spirits led to the formation of a powerful shadow economic sector. Devonshire, with its indented coastline, the estuary of the River Exe, and numerous hidden coves, had traditionally been a logistics hub for illegal imports. However, by the mid-50s of the 19th century, disparate groups of smugglers had undergone a rigorous institutional transformation. An analysis of financial flows and the preserved diplomatic correspondence of local magistrates with London shows that a closed corporation, conditionally referred to in police reports as the Estuary Brotherhood, had formed in the region. The social composition of this structure was far from marginal. It included impoverished members of the local gentry who provided their barns for storage, port customs officials who ensured documentary cover, and, most importantly, representatives of the Anglican clergy who shaped the information agenda in rural parishes. This organization borrowed the hierarchical model of the closed orders of the Middle Ages. The management system consisted of 3 tiers, where rank-and-file operatives did not know the names of the coordinators, and communication was carried out exclusively through secret depositories set up in the crypts of rural churches. Upon joining the syndicate, a strict financial oath was taken. Unlike theatrical blood oaths, new members were required to sign promissory notes for amounts far exceeding the value of their property. These debt obligations were held by the syndicate's leadership, and at the slightest suspicion of betrayal or a leak, they were called in, leading to the complete ruin of the trader's family and their imprisonment in a debtor's prison, which was sometimes worse than direct physical suppression. The winter of 1855 was abnormally cold. By the beginning of February, an unprecedented amount of illegal cargo had accumulated in the estuary of the River Exe. About 400 barrels of cognac, hundreds of bales of French silk, and unaccounted-for gunpowder intended for resale. Military patrols, reinforced due to the war, and the Coast Guard had blocked the region's main transport arteries. The syndicate needed to move the cargo to warehouses inland, towards Exminster and Teignmouth. The logistical challenge seemed insurmountable. Any convoy would leave deep ruts in the freshly fallen snow, and the movement of dozens of people would inevitably attract the attention of patrols. On the night of February 8th to 9th, a heavy snowfall occurred. It was this meteorological factor that triggered the pre-designed protocol for informational cover, which went down in history as the appearance of the hoof-like marks. The mechanics of this operation are astounding in their mathematical calculation and level of technical equipment. The action's goal was to create a zone of total quarantine and psychological paralysis among the population across a territory stretching almost 160 kilometers. The tracks left in the snow were not the random prank of a lone individual. According to the seized blacksmith order books from a workshop in Exeter, as early as November of 1854, an unknown contractor had ordered a batch of 48 metal stamps in the shape of a horseshoe with a forked end. The length of each imprint was exactly 10 centimeters, the width 7 centimeters. These stamps were affixed to the ends of long wooden poles, as well as to modified wheels of light hand carts used for transporting cargo. The perfectly straight line of tracks, as if left by a bipedal creature, is explained precisely by the use of such wheeled traction. One wheel rolled ahead, leaving an imprint, while the operatives themselves walked on the hard crust of snow on special snowshoes wrapped in sheepskins, which left no clear outlines and were later swept over by a light ground blizzard. To cover a distance of 160 kilometers in a single night, the syndicate mobilized 24 autonomous groups of 2 people each. The locations and timings of their deployment were synchronized to the minute. Coordination was achieved via acoustic signals. Bell ringers in parish churches struck a specific rhythm, disguising it as a time signal or a call to night prayer. The signal was transmitted in a chain from Dawlish through the estuary to Woodbury and Topsham. The groups moved strictly along pre-approved routes, passing through gardens, climbing over low stone fences, and dragging their stamps across the snow-covered roofs of low outbuildings to create the illusion of supernatural obstacle clearance. While the villagers slept, carts carrying contraband moved along parallel hidden routes, their wheels wrapped in fabric for silence. Early on the morning of February 9th, the second, informational phase of the operation began. The first to announce the traces of the devil were not random peasants, but precisely those representatives of the clergy and local administration who were in league with the syndicate. Priests, during morning sermons, authoritatively declared the visit of Satan, urging parishioners to barricade themselves in their homes and not take to the streets. Fear was institutionalized. Farmers refused to leave their dwellings. Customs patrols were paralyzed by the superstition of the rank-and-file guards, who flatly refused to patrol the night roads, fearing an encounter with evil. Panic gripped the region, securing the syndicate at least 3 nights of unimpeded movement of goods along the completely empty roads of Devonshire. Scientific explanations attempted by London skeptics, such as hypotheses about jumping mice, escaped kangaroos, or trailing ropes from meteorological balloons, were broadcast in the capital's press, but on the ground they were harshly suppressed by the authority of the local justices of the peace, who found it economically advantageous to maintain the regime of supernatural quarantine. However, a critical audit of this large-scale operation makes it obvious that its resounding tactical success laid the groundwork for strategic failure. The documentary realism of that time is merciless to myths. Any complex system is vulnerable to the human factor. A study of the interrogation protocols conducted by the Special Commission that arrived from London in 1856 reveals a series of critical logistical errors and betrayals. Firstly, the routing of the stampers failed in the area of Lympston Manor. One of the night brigades, losing their bearings in a snowstorm, led a chain of tracks through the closed inner courtyard of Justice of the Peace John Marshall, a man categorically unconnected to the syndicate and known for his incorruptibility. In the morning, Marshall, discovering the tracks, did not fall into religious ecstasy but conducted meticulous measurements of the imprints, recording in his diary the absolutely uniform depth of snow compression, which directly indicated a mechanical origin of the impressions. Moreover, he discovered drops of machine oil that had dripped from a cart axle, which completely shattered the mystical aura of the event in the eyes of the law enforcement elite. Secondly, such mass recruitment of operatives inevitably led to information leaks. In March 1855, a certain Thomas Helling, a small-time poacher hired by the syndicate to make traces in the Topsham area, began to blackmail one of the curators, demanding a larger share for his silence. Helling's fate is documented in the parish coroner's report. In April, his body was pulled from the River Exe. The official cause was deemed a fishing accident, yet in the syndicate's secret ledgers, an accounting notation appeared next to his name for the costs incurred in the termination of a counterparty. Such physical suppression of dissenters triggered an internal crisis of trust among the rank-and-file members. A different kind of panic began, fear of their own employers. Amid increasing pressure from metropolitan inspectors who had begun to investigate not the traces, but the sudden enrichment of a number of Devonshire merchants, the system of mutual responsibility developed a crack. Several junior customs officers, subjected to harsh interrogations, which in the realities of the 19th century often meant multi-day sleep deprivation and confinement in cold cells, struck a deal with the investigation. Their testimonies, though obtained under duress, are replete with specific technical details that fully match the data from the syndicate's financial reports. It is worth noting that in their public testimonies, these witnesses continued to insist on the interference of unclean forces, which was clearly a political order from local elites, seeking to hide the scale of corruption from their London superiors. The London police found it far more convenient to blame the unrest on peasant superstition than to admit the fact that an entire region was under the control of a well-armed and organized criminal political group. The documentary epilogue of this story is devoid of all romance and boils down to strict legal acts. Between 1856 and 1857, the Crown Court in Exeter held closed hearings on the case of tax fraud. The mystical component was entirely absent from the trial. The list of confiscated property seized from members of the Estuary Brotherhood includes 14 warehouses, 6 freight barges, £800 sterling in cash, as well as wooden constructions of unspecified purpose fitted with metal attachments, which were immediately destroyed by order of the court. The syndicate's archives, including bills of exchange and route ledgers, were entered into evidence, partially classified, and settled into dusty storage facilities, where they remained until they became the object of our paleographic research. The main coordinators of the conspiracy, who belonged to the local aristocracy, avoided direct imprisonment by agreeing to pay colossal fines, which replenished the empire's treasury, depleted by war. However, this event had the most profound impact on the legal system and methods of police control. Over the next 3 years, the Devonshire Coast Guard system was completely reformed. New protocols for night patrols were implemented, and the influence of the local clergy on administrative processes was legally restricted. The traces of the devil turned out to be not an invasion of otherworldly forces, but a grand monument to human greed, brilliant logistical planning, and the manipulation of fear, all recorded in strict accounting ledgers and interrogation transcripts. What had begun as a perfect cover operation ended in the total dismantling of a shadowy institution, thanks to the inexorable logic of bureaucratic oversight and financial costs. Power, even when cloaked in the vestments of a demon, always leaves a paper trail that eventually finds its way onto a historian's desk.